that's when God started speaking to my heart. Like, you know, the way that you said that wasn't right. Seastar, cheers. And thank you for coming to cruise with us today. And before we get started, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Today, we are going to be talking about how to effectively communicate with your partner after delivery. So before we get started on that, I just want to go ahead and introduce my co-host, Emily.
Hi!
And I want to shout out Indonesia. Indonesia, you guys are amazing. Thanks so much. You are our highest supporters, and I would love to hear more from you guys. So let's get started on this. I'm actually really excited to talk about this. I definitely feel like there are a lot of women and men who can learn from effective communication. So we can start by being straightforward and letting your husband, your partner know what it is that you need, but you need to be direct. It's really hard when we have expectations or place expectations on others, and that person is unaware of what it is that we need. And so in our mind, we're thinking, okay, I need help with dishes. You're looking at the dishes, but the dishes aren't getting done. And then you get upset because the dishes aren't done. But when did you say, hey, I need help with the dishes? Do you think that you can spare 5 minutes and you knock those out for me? You know, like, it's the simple things, the little things, they all start to add up over time.
Absolutely. And one thing I do want to say, after, you come home or you're at home and after giving birth, like, allow some time to let the dishes stack up if it has to. It's going to be a little cluttery, a little messy, but, right now is the time for you, baby, and your partner or husband to be together and to focus on the baby and not, the dust on the windowsill.
Yes. Not everything has to be picture perfect. I think that with the start of social media, or just like the uptick of social media and everything having to be like organized and picture perfect, like, you live in a model home, but you don't live in a model home. You live in a home that is actually being utilized, and you have a family, but that doesn't mean that you're a robot and you can do everything all the time. So it's okay if some dust collects or some dishes stack up in laundry. If you get a little bit excess laundry, it will get done. Give yourself some grace.
Absolutely.
There is space and time. Trust us. There will be space and time for you to get that done. The second thing that we're going to talk about is don't make assumptions. Assumptions are very catastrophic for relationships, because when you assume that somebody is going to do something, it causes stress. It just really does. And I've noticed that, I think that's one of the 4 agreements. Never make assumptions. Is that one?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I know that book.
Yeah, I think that's actually the 4 agreements, is don't make assumptions. Like, don't assume that somebody knows something if you haven't communicated it. I know that women, we have swirling thoughts a little bit. I'm not a man, I don't ever know, but I feel like women have more swirling thoughts in our heads than men do, right? And so, like, when we're having all these swirling thoughts, we're like, oh, you know what? I wonder if he knows that I need this done, but you never say it. And then you get frustrated again because you assume that your husband's going to take out the trash and never, the trash is full. And unless you have some sort of schedule where you say, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you take out the trash at 6 p.m., it doesn't get done. And I know it's a minute task, but it's still a task that needs to be completed. And so if you're not communicating, if you're not verbalizing that that is something that needs to be done, then they're not going to know. You're just making assumptions, and then there you go. You guys are bickering back and forth over something stupid. And it's unnecessary.
Yeah, totally. For me, after I gave birth, you know, we talked about that I want a specific kind of raw milk smoothie. And, you know, for the first 4 weeks, it was assumed that I was going to get that every morning, and it happened. But I said it. I set the tone. I mean, I set the what I wanted. I told him what I wanted.
You verbalized what it is that you need.
Yeah. So
he knew, hey, she wants this raw milk smoothie. I best make it for her. Mm-hmm. Which is good. I mean, it's a small thing, but that small thing still requires your time. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, being respectful of each other's time is very important. Another really important point to hit on is prayer. When in doubt, pray together. That's been huge for my husband and I's relationship, because sometimes we can't see through our own frustrations. And it's like, all right, this conversation is not getting anywhere. I feel like both of us have made our points, and I'm still, you know, hunkered down in what it is that I'm trying to say, and he's hunkered down in what he's trying to say. And so sometimes there's like this mist of discontent, and you can feel the energy in the house, just like, like, oh, get on my nerves. But when you pray and you give God the room to work in your relationship, it actually really works. A lot of the times, the things that he and I pray for, it's answered right away. And it will take some time and some space, because usually we like to, if we can't come to some sort of agreement with what it is that's going on with us, we try to give ourselves, I don't necessarily say 24 hours, but like a good 5 hours to turn on it a little bit more. And that's when God starts speaking to my heart. Like, you know, the way that you said that wasn't right. There was a way that you could have conveyed that would have been more diplomatic. Point number 4, I think all of us can relate to. Be flexible with how you're going to get things done, and don't be so rigid.
Oh yeah, I've never been so patient, ever.
You know, I think women are more attention to detail oriented, and we have a vision of how we want things done. Mm-hmm. And we can see the vision, and we know that it needs to be executed a specific way, and we expect for it to be executed the same way that we envision in our mind. And so when our partners don't execute it the way that we envision, it causes problems. And we're like, you know, I saw this going this way. And they're like, what? It got done though, right? Why are you being a dictator again? How come you just can't let me do it the way that I envision? Because men have their own vision too. And I think if you were to take a look with that, we would realize that we're co-creators in the way that we create things. And so it's not all about us. It is not. I know that we want it to be all about us sometimes, but it's really not. And if you are in a partnership, you have to understand that you're co-creators. And so when there is a task that needs to be done and you can't do it because you don't have the time or the ability to do it at that moment, and you need that help and you need that support from your partner, you have to be willing to accept their vision and how it's going to manifest and how it's going to come out. It might not look exactly the way that you envisioned it, but you have to respect their vision too, because, you know,
I don't know. I just feel like men don't necessarily like they allow women to be creative, and they don't shoot our vision down as much as we probably shoot theirs down. And I think that that is kind of hurtful. Like if my husband was like, no, I don't like the way you did that, I'm going to do it on my own, that would hurt my feelings. It really would. And I would feel like I not appreciate it. And I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't appreciate me and value my input and value the way that I create and how I see things. And so a lot of time and hurt feelings could be saved simply by respecting your partner's vision and how they do things.
Yeah, and I'll just tap into that. I think it's deeply ingrained with us women in being in having things done a certain way in terms of like perfectionism, and we kind of express that outwardly when someone else is doing stuff for us. And for me, it's like the dishwasher. There's a certain way I want things aligned in the dishwasher so you can maximize the space. But Cody kind of puts things everywhere and you could barely fit any other dishes. And I've let it go because then later on I'm gonna just correct it.
Yeah. That's a big one too. Like my husband always says, if you want something done your way, do it yourself. And at first I was just like, why are you saying it like that? Like, why? And then I was, slowly but surely I started to understand what he meant. And I had to learn how to like catch myself, not necessarily bite my tongue, but catch myself when I'm about to correct him or say, could you do it? Like, you could do it. Wait till he leaves for work and then do it the way that you wanted to do it, because they're probably not going to notice. And even if they do, they're not going to say anything because it's done, and so you can save so much time and so much effort by just waiting. And if you see something that you want done and it doesn't meet the deadline, it just needs to be done, everything is going to be okay. You're not going to die from it being done their way. But you could definitely wait until you have time to do it yourself. Don't stress them out, stress yourself out because it's not done the way that you wanted to do it. And so now you're bickering and you're upset over it's not done the way that I wanted it to be done. I don't like the way he did it. No, so I said something about the way that I didn't like that he did. And now we're arguing when you could have just waited. Right. So just slow down and appreciate the co-creation. It was a co-creation. It was a collaborative effort to make a baby. Okay. So that is also the vision is collaborative. It's not just about you. Okay. Our next point is kind of in alignment with the last point. Don't make things harder than they need to be. And that might sound like a loaded statement. Don't make things harder than they need to be. What does that mean? Women are classically trained to make things difficult. And I don't know if it's due to comparison or like seeing things done a specific way, or you see how another woman did something and you want that for yourself. And you might not have all the tools in your box to do it just like she did. And so that picture of perfection that you have in your mind, or that picture that you have in your mind of how it should be done, might be a little bit challenging. And honestly, we don't know everything. And sometimes we don't have the resources to do something specifically like somebody else. And that can create stress because, I think our husbands do want to give us the best. And sometimes they're not always in the position to provide that for us. And they don't want to see us sad and they want us to be happy. But again, they're not in the position to be able to do that. And so when you make things harder than they need to be, it's just basically being a brat. That's basically what it is. You're being a brat because one, you're not willing to be flexible with how that task gets accomplished, or whatever it is that you want, um, you're not getting it your way. And so you're being difficult. And when you're difficult, it's just like almost it's a turn off. It's just like men and women work very hard to have the things that they do have. And no, not everything is about materials, but sometimes we have to be more patient about where our husbands are at. And if it's something that we can't live without, then we're just going to have to be a little bit more patient until we have it. But don't be mean, because that's not fun. That's that. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's mean and always wants things and are making things difficult because they're not getting their way. That would suck.
Absolutely. And this is a time to let go.
It is.
Let go of ego.
Yes. The ego will wreck a relationship. And especially after you have a baby. Like, I don't know, you just don't have you just don't have the same amount of time, at least in the beginning. You don't have the same amount of time that you did prior to having the baby. When you're pregnant, it might have been a little bit harder to get things done, but you still were able to get it done. Now you have to take your baby into consideration. And so the timeline is extended out a little bit further than it would be if there was no baby present. Even if you have kids that are, from the 5 to 10 year range, they're off doing things, they're playing, they're at school, so you still have time to get those things done. But with an infant, it's a completely different story. You're on their schedule, so being patient is a must. And that leads us into our next point: allow room for adaptation. Do you know everything, Emily?
No, I do not. I must say though, and Cody will tell you, in our therapy session, Cody told our therapist, Emily thinks she is right 99.9% of the time. I said, yeah, so 0.1%, I'm not always right.
That's funny. That's a good one. Because women, we do be thinking we right about everything. We will have a whole debate, a whole debacle about I know this and I know that. But you know what? You don't know everything, boo-boo. You really don't. And if you want your husband to be able to help you, you have to be able to adapt. And he has to be able to adapt too. But it's not just one way. It's not just him doing the adapting and you just doing the bossing around. I have the baby. You need to do this. You need to do that. That's annoying. I like that. Me saying that is kind of annoying. So I know it sounds annoying to them. And men are hardwired to get the job done. It's just that we have to be patient. Patience is coming up a lot. And I definitely feel like patience is very, very important in this topic, in this arena, because you had to be patient for 9 months to meet the baby, right? Your husband, especially if this is your first child, doesn't know everything. He's, in a fantasy world, our husbands would have read every book about how to be a great dad, how to be a wonderful family man, but they didn't. You got to learn as you go.
Yeah.
Right?
Another thing I want to say in terms of adaptability, even within ourselves, like for me, I had to adapt not working and just accepting to just enjoy my child and, not just put him down when he goes to sleep and then go to do some work. Like I had to adapt to, maybe I don't have to be in work mode all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized that like this week, and my baby's 6 weeks old. I was like, I don't have to be on the computer doing something. Maybe I don't.
To our next point, which is to ask questions instead of making demands.
Oh yeah, that's something I really got to pay attention to and take a beat before demanding and having to ask. Because it's much more polite anyways.
It is.
And it makes a big difference in how you ask.
It does. You can attract much more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. My grandma used to always say that. Be mindful of the way that you ask for things. Be mindful of the way that you speak to people, because we remember those things. Same thing can be said when you're talking to your partner. Emily and I were having a little conversation earlier, and I was expressing how I asked my husband to go get a basket out of the car. And I realized it's a simple task, but it's still his time. He has to take time out of his day to go do something for me. And just because we're married, I can't just assume that his time is my time. It's not. He's doing a favor. So if I want him to do that favor, then a gentle spirit is a lot more helpful than like an angry spirit. And so I was just like, oh, hey, when you get a chance, can you go get that out of the car? And he's like, I'm already on it. I'm going to get it. I told you I was going to get it. But if I would have asked that in a different way, like, oh, you need to go get that basket out of the car. I told you to get that basket out of the car. Like, what did you just say? I don't like how you just talk. Like, you can already see the difference there. And you could, the way that you ask a question is, to me, ask a question the way that you want it to be asked to you. If you are asking or if you're demanding that something be done, best believe it's going to take time for that thing to get done, because nobody is receptive to being demanding, or for demands. I don't like tyranny. I don't like people who are mean or bullies. And so if I feel like you're bullying me or you're asking something with an attitude, I'm not going to do it. And then here goes an argument, because now the thing that I needed to get done isn't getting done. I'm sitting and I'm nursing the baby, and my husband is free and he's available. And here I go, oh, you need to do this. You haven't been really helping me with this. And I just feel like, whoa, is that how you start a conversation off? No, it is not. Hey, babe. I'm nursing the baby right now, but do you think when you get a chance that you could go and get this for me? Like, the two are just night and day. One is going to get something done right away because it sounds nice. Like, even when I said that, it's just like, oh, that's sweet. But the other one is just like, oh, I don't like how she just said that. I'll get it when I get a chance. And that leads us into our next point, which is be diplomatic. Diplomacy is really fun.
Tell me more about that. I actually don't even know what that means, diplomatic.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, so just think about being a diplomat. Like I don't like saying politicians, because I feel like politicians are good at lying, but politicians are really good at being well-rounded and polished and articulating themselves. And so when I was younger, I used to want to be an ambassador for a country. I don't know what country. I always picture France, because I used to watch Mary-Kate and Ashley, and I remember they had that passport to Paris, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should totally be an ambassador to France. But Diplomacy was a really big thing. My high school year, I was really interested in foreign diplomacy and just learning how to talk to people when there's a language barrier. And I feel like, again, diplomacy is you bringing your ideas to the table in a harmonious way. So just think of, when you think of diplomacy, think of harmony. And so if you were to picture all of the leaders around the world, the leaders who are righteous, if you were to picture all the righteous leaders around the world and they were having a seat at the table, how would they talk to each other? Diplomacy, that's what I mean when I'm saying be diplomatic. When you have a seat at your round table and you talk to each other, do it in a way that's harmonious and gracious and righteous, like that you're very slow to anger with each other and you're not calling each other names and you're not spewing hatred and you're not speaking so frustrating or frustrate. I don't think that's a word. You're not speaking in a way that could be received as frustration because you're having a seat at the table. You're coming as a diplomat, you know? And if you're thinking about diplomacy, usually when you're having a seat at the table, that means it's because there's a problem and it needs to be resolved. And so the best way for us to come have a seat at the table and resolve things in a way that we can both be heard. And as long as we keep it respectful and righteous and harmonious, both of us can be heard. And what it is that we're having issue with can be accomplished.
Yeah, the way I see it, absolutely. We're a team.
Yes.
You guys are a team, you know, and it has nothing to do with, who's right or who's wrong. Just you guys are a team. Put in the teamwork.
Exactly. Teamwork
to get things done.
Teamwork. Yeah.
Yep. So important.
It is. And okay. This next point might ruffle some feathers because I have friends, I've even myself done this before and I learned the hard way. Do not bring your family, your parents into your marital life. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't care if your mama your best friend, your daddy your best friend. I definitely feel like it's very unfair to our partners when we start to involve other people in our relationship. And I know it's like, it's not other people, that's my mom or that's my dad. But you left the home. You're no longer living with your parents. And even if you are, you need to be diplomatic enough to have conversations without involving other people who have nothing to do with your relationship. Because the moment that you do that, you're going to do it again and you're going to keep doing it. And now your parents have a preconceived notion about what's going on in your relationship, and they'll start to feel as though they're entitled to know things. And then when you don't want to tell them what's going on anymore, like they start to think all these things that may or may not be true based off what you told them in the past. And it doesn't allow for your relationship to improve. And I definitely can see how that can create a lot of turmoil in a relationship. And I know your parents want the best for you, but sometimes you need to want the best for yourself and handle things in-house. And if it's not a professional marriage coach or therapist, then you don't need to be telling anybody what's going on. Like, as long as it's like, as long as there's no abuse involved, simply you two not able to come to an agreement, and you getting frustrated because you weren't able to come to an agreement, getting on the phone with your mom or your dad and calling them and letting them know, hey, this is what happened today. I'm really frustrated and I'm upset, blah, 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 blah. This is what he did. This is why I'm mad. This is what she did. This is why I'm mad. It's unnecessary drama. It's going to create chaos.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this one up. It is very important because even though your mom and your dad are your family, you've created a new family unit, which is you and your husband. That's a separate family unit that you have to keep strong, and issues between you guys, no outsiders, because only you both know what's really happening, how you're both feeling, and then of course if you're sharing it with your parents, they're going to get a bias, and it could be a negative bias that you're sharing. And then they're gonna, like you said, they're gonna have this image of your husband being a certain way, and then it's gonna even affect the vibe when we're all interacting with each other at a barbecue. Yeah, and it's just not fair to your husband.
It's really not. And you have to understand that everybody has emotions and have feelings, and backbiting and gossiping, that's really what that is. It would hurt for your husband to divulge some information to you, for you to go and tell your parents, and then at said barbecue, it comes up. He doesn't know that you had that conversation with them. Now that causes the foundation of your relationship to be messed with, because he's like, wait a minute, you told them that? Like, oh, I don't trust you. Like, that hurts. Now your parents are looking at me this sort of way, and that might not even be exactly how it went down. That's what you told them because you were in your emotions, and he didn't have the opportunity to say his part. And so now it's your word against his. So when he finds out that you told your parents that, and he's thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. How am I going to defend myself? You're not enemy number one. You should not be enemy in your own home together. So the Bible says when a man marries his wife, he leaves his mother and father and cleaves onto her. So if you're leaving the home of your mother and father and you're cleaving onto your wife, you're no longer in your family home. So you leave that behind. And now that means that you're in your own hale and you're taking the responsibility of handling your internal affairs internally. All of the things that are outside that home, it don't need to be talked about with other people. And I get it. It's your parents. You love them. They offer great advice. But again, unless it's your safety, about your safety, they don't need to know. They really don't. And if you want to protect your union and your peace, then you have to just work through it. And that's how you learn how to effectively communicate, because you're giving your husband the opportunity to learn how and what to do when you guys hit those bumps in the road with communication.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to say with that same thing, don't bring outsiders talking crap about your husband. I've had my sister talk crap about my husband, and I had to draw a line. I said, you don't have to like him, but you don't talk crap about my husband. This is my husband, my relationship, my business.
Exactly.
Yep.
And respect.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge one. And if you make it okay to disrespect your spouse, other people will think it's okay.
Right.
And that's the last thing you want. Men, I definitely feel hold steady onto the respect. Like they need that to function. And how are you going to function if every time you turn around, somebody's disrespecting you? Like that starts to make you feel powerless. And nobody wants to feel powerless in their own relationship. Like, ew, I don't want to be in it anymore. So on to our next point is show your partner how they can help you by creating a simple task list. you're going to do this, and it's going to be 1, this is a priority. It needs to get done now. 2, it's important. It's not quite a priority, but we need to get to it within the week. 3, we can get to this in the next 2 weeks. So when you make a list, you're giving room for them to help you, but not feel pressure. Because sometimes I think when women say that they need help, we can wait until the last minute, and it's like, okay, well, I need this done now. And like, now that feeling, that's pressure, because you can feel that energy from the other person, and the other person might have things on their own task list that they need to get done. So they have to drop what they're doing to help you. Like, that sounds like a lot. Now I got to drop what I'm doing to help you. You should have told me that you need help with this. Here we go. I assumed that they were going to have time available to help me, and I didn't ask. When you make a list together, or you make a list, and it doesn't necessarily be together, when you make a list, and like, say you're a stay-at-home mom and your husband's at work, he's not going to be here all day to see what it is that you need help with. And you sitting up here crying in your room, I don't have help with anything. Nobody supports me. Nobody helps me. But did you ask? Did you make a list? Or are these all of those thoughts in your mind that you need help with, and you haven't said anything to anybody, so you can't get the support that it is that you need? And you have to be reasonable with your requests. Don't put something off that's extremely important to get done until the last minute, because now you're stressed, he's stressed, the baby's stressed, because the baby can feel it, and it's just chaos in the house. Everybody's pissed off.
Wow. Yeah. That's so funny that I bidded on, and at an estate sale, I bidded on something and I won. And I didn't tell him that we had to go get it today. Because if you don't, they forfeit, like, you can't. It's that day you go get it at the estate sale before they close the house. And it was 30 minutes away from our house. And I didn't know that. They just give you the address last minute. And then he had other plans, like things to do after work. And suddenly I'm just like, we need to go get it. And he got so upset because he didn't know that he had to get that done. And eventually I was like, this isn't important. Like, I only paid $15 for this picture. It's not important. And he felt much better. And I had to let that go. My expectation of us going to pick the stuff up.
Yeah.
And it's my fault that I didn't mention it. I just assumed he was going to be open for me after work.
Yeah. And see, there we go with those assumptions. It's like when we assume that our partners are going to have a specific amount of time for us, when we don't create room, or we don't let them in on what it is that we have going on, then it creates frustration. Like for us, we have to have laundry days, and we have to make it on days to where it's flexible for both of our schedules, because we both have so much going on. And I despise doing laundry. I despise it. And my husband, he doesn't mind it so much, but me personally, I do not like laundry. I mean, we're minimalists. We don't have that many clothes. The girls don't have that many clothes. We try to keep the laundry. I made sure, I was like, I'm getting rid of all my clothes. I don't want to wash no clothes. I don't want to feel like I'm in the laundry room all day long. Like, let's just have 10 outfits each, and that's it. If your clothes run out, baby, you're going to have to wait till...
Right? For me, it's got to smell before I wash it.
Yeah. Like, you're going to have to rewear it. If you haven't worn it twice, it's not dirty. My mom used to do that to us. That's why I know I can do it. Like, you just doesn't smell. All right, we good. Let's go. But it's little stuff like that you have to communicate about. And like, another thing for me is I love taking on like trying new things. And so on Sundays, there's a jewelry making class that my friend invites me to all the time. And Tony doesn't work on the weekends. And so I'm just like, well, I could go to that jewelry making class on Sunday. And he's like, well, you need to let me know what weekend you trying to do that, because I'm trying to relax. I don't want to be here with the kids by myself. Like, while you're out there making jewelry, you know, the girls run around. You like, that's not the life. So he's just like, okay, well, if you're gonna do that, could you please like do it one Sunday a month so that I don't feel overwhelmed, and tell me how long it's gonna be for so that I can do and like relax, or know that I'm gonna have time to be able to relax before I jump into my shift on Monday, because it would suck for me to do something like that all day long, to come back, you know, act like everything is fine and normal. And he's like, this was a stressful ass day. Like, today was stressful. And I'm glad you're back. I hope you have fun. But I needed some time now. But if he knows once a month, one Sunday a month, I'm going to go make jewelry, like he can mentally prepare himself for that. And that's really important. Just like when he wants to go do something, volunteer to go do a beach cleanup, I'll know that that's what it is that he wants to do. And I won't make a family date that day, because I know that, oh, he wants to go do a beach cleanup, or we can all go together to do the beach cleanup. On the task list, like how that would be considered important to him. You know, we both love taking care of the environment, but that was one of the things, like when I met him, that he was extremely passionate about. When people go to the beach, I feel like they should enjoy their time at the beach, not be looking around at a whole bunch of trash. Like, yuck. You wouldn't believe how much trash gets washed up onto shore. And people actually have to go and pick that up. There's nobody that the city hires to do that. It's people who volunteer their own time to go and pick up trash. And so he likes to do things like that. If I don't have time to go and do that, I see on the task list that, hey, he wants to go and pick up trash. I know how important this is to him. I need to make sure that I set time aside to either where I can help do that, or that I know that I'm going to have the baby for X amount of hours without his help. You can put a P by priority, I by important, and then N by not so important, and just check it off as it gets done. And then you feel like you've been supported, and it doesn't feel like it's so stressful. So there are so many different ways in which we can effectively communicate with our partners, and it doesn't require you blowing your brains out because you feel like you just can't get through to them. I think that men and women both have the tools that they need to communicate. It's just learning how to use them. You might have a tool, but you don't know how to use it. And sometimes it just takes a few adjustments here and a few adjustments there, going through some the bumps and getting some bruises to see how you and your partner communicate. And the way you communicate isn't going to look the same as your next door neighbor. So also give yourself some grace there, and give yourself some time, and don't expect things to happen overnight, because they're not going to. Usually when we have these cycles of how we communicate, it takes a little bit to break, you know. So once you implement something new, you have to give yourself some grace and some room for it to, like, you just have to give yourself some grace and some time to see how it works. You might have to tweak some things here and there. For your list, you might realize that, oh, hey, we only need priority and not so important. You don't need 3 things. You just need 2. And I really hope that you can find a way to initiate some of this effective communication for after delivery. And it doesn't even have to be after delivery. It could just be you want to try to initiate some new effective communicating strategies with you and your partner. And I hope that we could help you with that. And we really appreciate you, especially if you've made it this far in the video. So thanks for coming to cruise with us. Don't forget to like, comment, engage, share and subscribe if you feel this is your jam. And we'll be seeing you in the next video. Aloha.
Aloha.